Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. And today we're going to be looking at something that I think is really, really interesting.
Okay.
It's the idea of baby steps millionaires. And we've got some great material to work with here.
Yeah.
We've got excerpts from the book Baby Steps Millionaires.
Right.
And we've also got a white paper that has like a really interesting study on millionaires all across America.
Yes.
But the thing that's so fascinating about these millionaires is they didn't win the lottery.
Right.
They didn't get rich overnight.
No.
It was consistent planning and action that got them there.
It's about achieving that financial security and having the resources to be generous, but it's not necessarily living that, lifestyle with the mansions and the private jets.
Yeah, these aren't the billionaires that, we see in the headlines all the time that are making, more in a minute than most people make in a lifetime.
Exactly. And I think, when you look at the book and some of the stories like Clint and Brian E., they built a $1.3 million net worth, and it's primarily in their retirement savings and a paid-off home.
Wow.
And those are goals that feel attainable, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Those are things that everyday people can work towards.
Right.
And their story really shows that this can work. I mean, speaking of stories that are inspiring, there's one about Jackie, a Black single mother.
Yeah.
Who grew up in poverty, and by her 50s, she achieved a $1.5 million net worth.
That's amazing.
It's amazing how she overcame so many obstacles to get there.
Yeah, you see, that's that thing about, achieving financial freedom.
Right.
It starts with believing it's possible no matter your circumstances.
Right.
It's recognizing that, your past doesn't define your future and combining that belief with a solid plan and consistent action. And that's where that whole baby steps framework comes in.
Yeah. Now, I know baby steps might sound kind of slow,
Right.
especially in our fast-paced world where everything is, got to be instantaneous.
Right.
But the book also really cautions against, these get-rich-quick schemes. And I think that's interesting because the author, Dave Ramsey, actually shares his own personal experience with that.
He did. He actually went bankrupt at age 26 because of a real estate venture that went bad.
Wow.
And so just imagine building up that wealth and then just losing it all.
Yeah.
It really shows, those dangers of chasing instant gratification and that emotional roller coaster that can come with it.
And, it makes you think twice about taking those shortcuts because it sounds great in the beginning, but it's a cautionary tale for sure.
Yeah.
And, he uses other examples too, like Andre Ritos, the NFL player, who earned $20 million but ended up bankrupt because of overspending.
Yeah.
And then you've got the story of the lottery winner, what was his name, Billy Bob Harold Jr.
Right.
I mean, he faced financial ruin and then ultimately, took his own life because of it.
Sad story. And these stories really emphasize that this baby steps philosophy, it's not about deprivation or living like a miser. It's about building lasting wealth through consistent effort and sound principles.
Right.
And so it's about the long game.
It's about the marathon, not the sprint.
Exactly.
Yeah, and what I really appreciate too about this whole approach is that it reframes our thinking about wealth.
Yeah.
Instead of seeing it as something inherently bad,
Right.
it highlights these baby steps millionaires who are using their wealth to make a positive impact.
Exactly.
Like there are stories about people paying for strangers' groceries,
Wow.
funding college tuition for people making anonymous donations to charities.
Yeah, the book really encourages raising money-smart kids.
Yeah.
Teaching them to work, to give, to save, to spend, and to steward their resources. And, these actions challenge the idea that all wealthy people are greedy or privileged.
Yeah.
It shows that they're using their wealth as a tool for good.
And the research backs it up. The study that you included in these materials found that most millionaires actually built their wealth over time through hard work and smart investing.
Okay.
They came from diverse backgrounds and they were incredibly generous with their money.
Oh.
In fact, the study specifically said that many of them came from middle-class families.
Really shifts your perspective on who millionaires are, huh?
It really does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It really does. So it's fascinating to see how these baby steps millionaires built their wealth over time, but what exactly are these baby steps?
Yeah.
Are they really as simple as the name suggests?
Well, that's the beauty of it. The baby steps are really 7 straightforward actions designed to guide you toward financial freedom.
Okay.
And they build on each other.
Okay.
And so the first step is creating a starter emergency fund of $1,000.
So it's like having that safety net for, those unexpected life events, because we all know car repairs, medical bills, surprise expenses, those can pop up at any time.
All right. Exactly. And it prevents you from going further into debt when those things happen. And, in the book, there's a story about Tiffany. a single mom who was able to cover a car repair using her emergency fund.
Yeah.
And so that $1,000 really turned a potential crisis into a minor inconvenience for her.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So once you have that cushion built up, what happens next?
So step 2 is where we tackle debt.
Okay.
The book emphasizes paying off all debt except for your mortgage using the debt snowball method.
Okay, I've heard of that method before. Could you just remind us how it works?
Of course, so you list all your debts from smallest to largest regardless of the interest rate, and you focus on paying off that smallest one first.
Okay.
Then you roll that payment amount into the next smallest debt and so on and so forth, and that's how it creates that snowball effect.
So it's not necessarily about tackling the debt with the highest interest rate first.
Right, well that might seem more logical mathematically. The debt snowball method is more about the psychological impact. It helps you build momentum and stay motivated by seeing those small wins early on.
That's a really good point because it can be really easy to get discouraged when you're facing, a mountain of debt.
For sure.
So getting those small wins can really make a difference.
Absolutely. And once you're debt-free, you move on to step 3, which is building a fully funded emergency fund.
Okay.
This time, it's 3 to 6 months of living expenses.
So this is a much larger safety net.
Exactly. It's like your financial fortress protecting you from job loss, medical emergencies, or any other major life disruption that could really derail your finances.
That brings a sense of security and peace of mind, knowing you have that buffer. So, okay, we've built our emergency fund, we've paid off debt, now we're ready for what?
Now it's time to build wealth.
Okay.
Step 4 is investing 15% of your household income in retirement accounts.
So that's where we start really working toward that long-term financial freedom.
Yes, the book really highlights the power of compound interest, especially when you start early. Even small amounts invested consistently over time can really grow significantly.
And step 5 is about saving for your children's college education.
Yes.
But the book stresses doing this debt-free, right?
That's a key point, because while college is important, it shouldn't come at the expense of your own financial well-being.
Okay.
There are scholarships, grants, part-time work options that can help make college affordable without taking on those massive loans.
Right. So it's about being strategic and prioritizing that long-term financial health for both you and your children.
Exactly.
Okay, what about step 6?
Step 6 is paying off your house early.
Okay.
Imagine the feeling of owning your home outright.
Yeah. Yeah.
The book emphasizes the freedom that comes with that, both psychologically and financially.
And this kind of goes back to something we talked about earlier, the fact that for most of these baby steps millionaires, 2/3 of their wealth is in retirement savings and 1/3 is in their paid off home.
Exactly. A powerful illustration of how these steps can work together to build lasting wealth.
Yeah. And then finally, we reach step 7, build wealth and give.
Yes.
So this is where you can really enjoy the fruits of your labor and use your resources to make a difference.
It's so inspiring how the book encourages generosity, has this natural outflow of financial freedom.
Yeah.
It's about having the ability to bless others and leave a lasting legacy.
So it's not just about accumulating wealth for yourself. It's about using it to make a positive impact
Exactly.
on the world.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, one thing that really stood out to me throughout these steps is that theme of patience.
Yes. The baby steps are definitely about the long game.
Right.
Slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah, it's like that story of the tortoise and the hare.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the book actually shares the inspiring story of Simon Kruger, the cross-country skier who won Olympic gold despite falling and breaking his pole at the start of the race.
Wow.
What's remarkable is that he didn't give up. He stayed calm, focused on each lap, and kept moving forward.
Such a powerful metaphor for financial freedom. Even when we face those setbacks, we can still achieve our goals with the right mindset and the right plan. Speaking of the right mindset, the book also emphasizes surrounding yourself with the right people.
Yes, and it's similar to that study we talked about earlier about how our social networks can influence our weight.
Right.
The people we spend time with can have a significant impact on our financial habits as well.
So if we're surrounding ourselves with people who are financially irresponsible, it's more likely to rub off on us.
Unfortunately, yes, but the opposite is also true.
Okay.
If we connect with people who are financially savvy and supportive, it can positively impact our journey. It's like having that team of cheerleaders on the sidelines encouraging us to stay on track.
Yeah, and in addition to that supportive network, the book also talks about adopting a growth mindset.
Yes, a growth mindset is crucial for financial success. It's about being open to new ideas, continuously learning, and not being afraid to challenge yourself.
So it's not just about, sticking to a rigid plan, but being adaptable and always looking for ways to improve your financial knowledge and skills.
Exactly. And, the research shows that millionaires tend to be voracious learners. They're always reading, attending seminars, talking to experts.
That makes sense. They see knowledge as an ingredient to success. I remember that in-depth study of millionaires mentioned earlier, and it highlighted some other really interesting traits that set them apart.
Like what?
Like they're proactive, not reactive,
Mhm.
They set goals, they make plans, and they take control of their finances.
They're also incredibly disciplined.
Okay.
They don't give in to impulse purchases or let their emotions dictate their spending habits.
Right.
They have a plan and they stick to it.
But it's not all work and no play for these millionaires, right?
No, not at all.
The study also found that they enjoy life. They take vacations, they dine out, they buy nice things.
Yeah.
But they do it within their means,
Right.
They've really found that balance between financial responsibility and living in the present.
That's an important point to remember. The baby steps approach is not about deprivation.
Yeah.
It's about making smart choices, being intentional with your money, and ultimately achieving a life of financial freedom and abundance. And that includes enjoyment and generosity.
Okay, so we've covered those foundational principles of this baby steps plan,
Right.
and we've explored those key characteristics of millionaires.
Yeah.
But how do we translate those concepts into real-world actions?
That's a great question, and that's what we'll dive into next. We'll explore some specific strategies and tools you can use to implement these principles and start building your path to financial freedom.
Okay, so we've talked about the baby steps, we've talked about the habits of millionaires, but now I'm really curious, what about the practical side of things?
Oh, yeah.
What are some specific tools or strategies that can help someone actually implement these principles?
Well, one of the most fundamental tools, and this is highlighted both in the book and the research you shared, is the power of budgeting.
Yeah, I think for some people, that word budget might sound restrictive. Yeah.
But I think it's more about awareness and making conscious choices about where your money is going.
You're absolutely right. It's about empowerment, not restriction. And the book offers a simple yet effective method called the envelope system.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that one. Isn't that where you actually use physical envelopes to allocate cash for different spending categories each month?
That's it. You have envelopes labeled groceries, entertainment, clothing, and so on. And when the cash in an envelope is gone, you're done spending in that category for the month.
Such a great visual way to track your spending, and I think it can be especially helpful for people who tend to overspend when they're using credit cards.
Yeah. And speaking of debt, you remember the debt snowball method we discussed earlier. The book really emphasizes prioritizing debt repayment above other financial goals.
Yeah, it's all about creating that momentum, getting those quick wins to stay motivated. But what if someone's, really struggling to make ends meet? The book also talks about increasing your income, right? Yes, that's an important part of the equation. It could involve asking for a raise, taking on a side hustle, or even exploring the possibility of starting a small business.
So it's about being resourceful and exploring all your options. And what I found really interesting is that even while you're working on paying off debt, the book still encourages generosity.
That might seem counterintuitive, but even small acts of giving can shift your mindset from scarcity to abundance.
Yeah.
It reminds you that you have something to share, and it can be incredibly empowering.
It's like that saying, the more you give, the more you receive. Now, as you progress through the baby steps and you begin to build wealth, the book suggests seeking guidance from a financial advisor.
Exactly, and it emphasizes the importance of finding an advisor who shares your values and understands your goals, because not all financial advice is created equal.
Right, so it's about finding someone you trust and who can help you develop a personalized plan. And when it comes to building wealth, investing is a key part of that, isn't it?
Absolutely. The book recommends a simple and diversified approach focusing on mutual funds that track the overall market. It's about long-term growth, not trying to time the market or chase quick returns.
So again, it's about consistency and patience.
Exactly.
Just like with the baby steps themselves.
Right.
And something else the book emphasizes is teaching your children about money from a young age.
Yes. It's never too early to instill good financial habits. Remember, those 5 key behaviors: work, give, save, spend, and steward.
Yeah.
The book provides practical tips for integrating those principles into family life.
Yeah.
From giving an allowance to involving kids in budgeting decisions.
It's about empowering that next generation to be financially responsible and see money as a tool for good. Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
We've explored the baby steps, the habits of millionaires, and some practical strategies for taking control of your financial future.
Yeah, what stood out to you from all of this?
Oh, so much. It's really inspiring to see that financial freedom is achievable for anyone who's willing to put in the effort.
It is. And, it all starts with that single step.
Exactly. So we hope this deep dive has sparked some new ideas and inspired you to take action. Until next time, happy learning.